Hey, welcome back to Lick of the Week videos. It's been a pretty good while since I've posted a new Lick of the Week topic, so I thought it would be a good time. Seems to be here lately on the Hangout we have a lot of threads concerning capos, how to use them, when to use them, why to use them, so I thought maybe I would do a little short video series on capo usage, demystifying the capo or something like that. I wanted to start with basically in this video just going over what a capo is and why you're going to use it and what the reasoning is behind using a capo. I look at a capo as an open string machine, which means that one of the primary functions of a capo is to give you open strings to play that you normally wouldn't have. Some people call this a movable nut, that you can take the string nut and move it up one fret at a time and it moves positions up, which is logical too. It's a good way to look at it. But the primary reason to use a capo is to transpose. And transpose is just a fancy theory term for moving a song or musical ideas from one key to another. So in terms of styles that we know in bluegrass, single string, melodic, scruggs, yes, there are many times when you can play those styles without a capo and function extremely well and everything sounds great. And then there are times when you want to reproduce something exactly from the key of G to another key, and it's more difficult to do, and the sound is not exactly the same. And the fingering is another important consideration when using a capo. A capo will allow you to keep the same fingering, the same patterns for the right hand, and move them. So in this video, let's look at one way to transpose. Let's take some standard Scruggs ideas, standard Scruggs licks, rolls, phrases, whatever you like to call them. Okay, those were all open G ideas, rolls, fills, licks, phrases, whatever you want to call them. And what we're going to do is transpose those to the key of A. Now again, you can play a lot of Scruggs ideas in the key of A, but they're typically closed positions, which means licks and ideas based on chord shapes or partial chord shapes. If you want to reproduce licks that have open string voicings, then you're going to have to use a capo. And that's one of the great things about a capo. So let's take the capo. I keep mine stored behind the nut. This is a Page, by the way. Really good capo for 25 bucks. And I'm going to place the capo not directly on the fret, but directly behind the fret. Not in the middle, not on top. This seems to be, I think, the best location for the capo. Now it's going to put the capo a little closer to your fretting hand, but you seem to get the best results, I think, by placing it directly behind the fret. Now I'm going to zoom in with my camera here. Hopefully, let's get a good look at what this looks like. So if you look in the video there, you can still see the fret in front of the capo. I'm not like this. I'm not directly over the capo, and I'm not here. I'm not directly behind. That tends to pull you a little sharp. I think you'll get the best results if you line the capo up directly behind the fret. Now, as far as tension goes, I need to move over a little bit, I think. You only want enough tension to get a good sound. Any excess pressure other than getting a clear tone will most likely pull you sharp. Pull your strings out of tune a little sharp, And this is another important consideration. It doesn't matter how well your banjo is constructed, how much you paid for it, how well the banjo is set up, if your bridge is compensated or how well the bridge is made. Capos will pull your banjo out of tune sometimes. They will pull certain strings a little sharp, a little flat, and it's just the nature of the beast, as we say. So don't get the idea that every time you use the capo, your banjo will stay perfectly in tune and always stable, because it won't. So get used to learning how to tweak some strings occasionally. If the strings have any age on them, sometimes the tweaking will be more. And if the little sleeve on the capo is kind of worn, you'll have more problems. If the fret is worn and has divots in it, That will cause problems. So even if your banjo is set up perfectly, your frets are perfect, your capo is brand new, strings are new, you still may experience some slight pulling out of tune with a capo, because that's just how it works. So once you get past that, it's a handy little gadget. But now I have to capo my fifth string, obviously, because I've raised the pitch of the banjo up to an A. I use spikes. You may have one of those sliding capos for the fifth. So now we have actually retuned the banjo to the key of A, and it gives us all open strings to play. So now our G licks that we played previously in the previous example can be moved up to the key of A. Now, taking consideration that you've lost these 2 frets, you can't use these anymore. Everything that you played gets moved up 2 frets. So now I can transpose all those Scruggs ideas which is pretty handy, pretty neat, and it also changes the tone of the banjo. Some banjos actually, I think, sound better capo than they do open on particular songs. And let's face it, if you're trying to reproduce a song that's normally associated with the key of A in, say, Scruggs style, and you want to play it like you hear the majority of players play it, you're going to have to use a capo. And again, you can play songs without the capo, but if your goal is to reproduce some of these licks exactly, to keep the same fingering, same right hand patterns, then you're going to need a capo. So let's go back to G and uncapo the fifth. So let's have another scenario. Let's say that we want to play in the key of B. Okay, we know the key of B is at the 4th fret. So again, we can use the capo to transpose our ideas to the key of B. And again, I'm going to make sure that I'm directly behind the fret, not on it, not a 1/4 inch behind it, but directly behind the fret. And I'm only going to apply enough pressure with this screw in the back to get me just enough tension to keep the strings pressed against the fingerboard in the fret. And I'll capo the 4th fret relative to the capo to the 5th string for the 5th string. So I'm capoed at B on the 5th. And I've done my tweaking. So now we can take those same licks that we played in G and then transpose to A, and now we can transpose those to the key of B. So right away you can see the advantage of being able to use a capo. Now here's one really strong recommendation that I'll give you about capo usage. Do not allow the capo to think for you. In other words, don't just assume that what you're doing with a capo is what you think it is, because sometimes using the capo will force you to use different positions, and you'll wind up calling these positions on the neck by the wrong name. Chords should always be called by their natural names, which means called by what they are, not by what they sometimes look like, because the capo can be confusing in that way. So in the next video, what we're going to do is transpose some ideas to different keys with the capo, and we'll take a look at what's happening when we use the capo and how the capo is impacting these chord shapes. So there's a quick little primer on capo usage, video 1, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.